democracy or Canada?
All right, sing with me, everybody. Are you ready?
Boy. So we got to talk about this pretty epic hockey game last night. Now, we don't talk about sports too much on this channel, but in this game between the U.S. and Canada, things got kind of political because apparently the Canadians are pissed. They're upset with President Trump that he's currently having a trade negotiation with Governor Trudeau.
Going with Canada, there was obviously a delay in implementing those tariffs.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and you know, people are in danger. This is a different world today. It's a different world. They need our protection, yes.
Okay, and they really don't like that because they know that if President Trump imposes tariffs on Canada, then it could possibly destroy the Canadian economy.
There is an interdependency between the US and Canada. But when we hear 25% tariffs, it's an existential threat because this would account on hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada being lost and higher unemployment rate coming from our best friend and best ally. So we have experience dealing with President Trump. We went through the renegotiation of NAFTA, which is called the USMCA. What we know is when President Trump talks, you have to listen, and you have to make sure that you are abiding by what he's saying in the sense that you have to take him seriously.
Right? So they really don't like having to go through these trade negotiations, and they showed their anger and frustration by deciding to boo the American national anthem before the game. Take a look.
Anthems of the United States and Canada. Please welcome Warrant Officer David Bloom of the Royal Canadian Air Force Band.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, the Canadians thought it would be a good idea to boo the American national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, which, in my opinion, is the most beautiful national anthem on the planet, right? There is no other national anthem that sounds better to my ears, at least, than the American national anthem, right? I don't understand how you can boo such a beautiful song, but that was straight up disrespect. And Canada, they effed around and they found out, because 3 fights broke out during this hockey match. And also on top of that, Canada lost. So I want to read about this. Now, I can't really show you the clips of them fighting, right? The full clips, because YouTube will, put a copyright thing on it. So we're just going to read about it, and I'm going to try to show you as much as I can. 3 fights broke out within 9 seconds of an ice hockey match between the U.S. and Canada after choruses of anti-Donald Trump booing. The puck had barely hit the ice when players started throwing punches, and the 4 nations faced off quickly, descended into a mass brawl. Fans in Montreal had already loudly booed the U.S. national anthem for the second time in 2 games at the NHL Run International Tournament. Yeah, so as you can see here, this is the fight, okay? And I gotta tell you guys, I think we should have a conversation about whether or not hockey is the toughest sport, right? I think hockey is really a man's game, right? In the sense that, like, think about all the skills you gotta have to be able to balance yourself ice skating. And I've tried to ice skate, and I tell you, I'm just not good at it at all, okay? I suck at ice skating. I don't know. Maybe it's my black jeans. I don't know, man. Maybe it's because black people don't ice skate like that. I don't know. But I've done a few ice skating dates, not events, but I went on a few ice skating dates, and it's just not my cup of tea, right? It's not my cup of tea. So I respect the fact that these individuals are able to balance themselves while at the same time playing this sport, this game, and also fighting, right? Throwing hands as well, too, right? Legally throwing hands. I love it. I think these guys are some of the toughest guys in sports, period, right? And I don't think that we show hockey players enough respect for their toughness, okay, to be honest with you, because this is a tough thing to do. Yeah, so Canada went on to get their butts whooped, not just in the fighting, right, but also when it comes to the actual game. Canada coach John Cooper, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, denied the fights against the U.S. were planned. Quote, that wasn't 2 coaches throwing players over and saying, this is happening. None of that happened. He said, this was as organic as it gets. It had been the first time that the U.S. and Canada had been on the ice in a best-on-best format since 2016 in the World Cup of Hockey. The U.S. ultimately beat Canada 3-1, wrapping up a spot in the tournament's championship game. With the win, the Americans clinch a spot in the 1-game final on Thursday in Boston, and they could face Canada again. Cooper called the first-minute mayhem. It was, I guess, 10 years of no international hockey exhaled in a minute and a half, he said. Yeah, so, yeah, it was a great hockey game, right? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's kind of what I like to see in sports, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't like to see the U.S. anthem get booed, but what I do like to see is those type of tempers, and I like to see the players play hard, right? I like to see them play like something's on the line. And, you know, in this case, pride is on the line, right? And that's how you get some of the best sporting experiences, right? So, hey, at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. Now, again, Canadians are pissed. They're pissed because apparently President Trump told Justin Trudeau that he is very serious about the idea of Canada becoming a 51st state. Take a look.
Now, while President Trump fixes our southern border, our neighbors to the north are really worried that the U.S. will annex Canada. Listen to what Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a hot mic moment.
Trump has it in mind that one of the easiest ways of doing that is absorbing our country. And it is a real thing in my conversation with him.
All right. Well, it seems like this has been bothering Trudeau for quite a while now, because here's what he said last month.
I started to suggest, well, maybe there could be a trade for Vermont or California for certain parts. He immediately decided that it was not that funny anymore, and we moved on to a different conversation. So this isn't out of the blue that he's doing this.
Well, certainly not out of the blue, because in fact, Trump did double down on his efforts to annex Canada. Let's take a listen.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state, because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year, essentially in subsidy to Canada. Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
And this just took place today. That was Brett Baer's sit down with President Trump. That took place at 3 o'clock Eastern ahead of the big game today. Guy, we know that Trump's a believer in manifest destiny. He is quite the businessman. What is your take on, the fact that he is now doubling down on his maybe attempts to annex Canada?
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, it's not a real thing.
You previously said that it's a real thing that Trump wants to annex Canada. How serious or urgent would you classify that threat?
Let's be very clear. Conversations around a 51st state are a non-starter. It's never going to happen. But we have to take seriously what the president is saying and fold that into our thinking as we continue to stand up for Canada.
Yeah, so I personally have no clue whether or not President Trump is serious about annexing Canada. He probably is. Maybe he has those types of ambitions. I don't know. Okay, now I personally don't really want Canada to be a 51st state, right? I'm not sure if the United States could handle more liberals, right? Because a vast majority of Canada is pretty liberal. Even the conservatives in Canada are basically liberal by U.S. standards. So I'm just saying that I'm not sure that it's a good idea, right? It's not something that I'm a fan of. But I think this is more about negotiating, because we all know that President Trump is a businessman, and our so-called partners and allies, they love to rely on the United States to do the heavy lifting and the heavy work for things that their countries should be doing. Like, for example, when it comes to self-defense, right? A lot of these countries think it's okay to slack off on defense spending because, hey, the United States, we're going to fight your war, right? This is what they think. So they don't spend that much money on the military. And President Trump has said, no. Okay, with the threats rising in the Arctic, particularly from Russia, China, etc., Canada's right there. He's like, no, you need to step up your defense spending. As of 2024, Canada allocates approximately 1.37% of its GDP to defense spending, which is below NATO's recommended target of 2%. This equates to roughly $30.5 billion annually. That's it. That's all they spend, right? I mean, that's it. 1.37% of their GDP. So they basically are like, hey, we don't really have to spend that much money on the military, right? And because of that, I think that's why President Trump is, threatening these tariffs, because he wants Canada to step it up, just like they want NATO to step it up altogether in regards to defense spending.
Canada's been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada's going to have to start paying up. And Canada's been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost. They think we're going to, protect them with our military, which is unfair. So Canada's going to be a very interesting situation because, we just don't need their product. Why would we pay $200 billion a year in subsidies to Canada when they're not a state? You do that for a state, but you don't do that for somebody else's country. So I think Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state. I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and people are in danger. This is a different world today.
I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target. And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger.
Yeah, so once again, I think you can see that this is about our so-called allies, whether it be Canada, whether it be Europe, Mexico, whatever, right? When you talk about these tariffs, the threat of tariffs is really about having these countries step up, okay? Step up your game, okay? Stop leeching off the United States of America. I think that's essentially what it is, okay, at this point. And The Canadians, again, they're not taking this too well. They are basically saying that there may be a war between the United States and Canada. And they're also trying to boycott the United States as well, too. Take a look.
We're not going to America. We're not spending our money there. It's Canada first, baby.
On social media, Canadians are loud and proud about boycotting trips to the U.S.
Flights, accommodation.
Michelle Porter is among them. She had a Florida trip for herself and 6 family members all booked. But Donald Trump's tariff threats changed everything.
I just canceled it.
Canceled a 2-week vacation, including flights, accommodations, and Disney World tickets. Thanks to insurance, she got most of her money back. But she lost about $1,300 U.S. and says she has no regrets.
As Canadians, that we need to stick together and as unity. And I raise my children to feel the same, be proud Canadian.
Canadians are getting fired up and fed up with what they're hearing from the U.S. Talk of war on social media.
America doesn't know the same thing that Canada is hearing.
Did you vote to go to war, like actual war with Canada?
You've been a real star-spangled pain in my ass, but at least you're bringing Canadians together.
Yeah. So this is where we're at, right? Tensions are boiling over, right? But hey, this is what happens when, big brother and little brother get in an argument, right? When they get in a fight, sometimes you got to fight it out, and hopefully at the end of all of it, you come together, you hug it out, and, you move forward. And I think that's essentially what's going to happen here with all this trade talk and, the talk of tariffs and stuff like that. I think that's what's going to happen, right? I think ultimately, in the day, what President Trump wants is for our allies to do a little bit more, right? To help us out a little bit more. I mean, they take all their money, okay, and they spend it on, luxurious things like universal health care, right? That's what they do, okay, while they rely on the United States of America to basically defend them, right? They don't have to spend all their money on defense because they think by default the United States is going to fight their wars. And it's like, I'm not necessarily sure if that's fair, right? I'm not sure if that's fair, but that's what they want, right? That's what they want. And when you ask them to step it up a little bit, they get so offended. And I really don't understand it. I really don't get it. Okay, a good partner, a good so-called ally should be more than happy to step it up if the United States says, hey, we need you to do a little bit more, right? We need you to pull your own weight, right? And that's essentially what's happening. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.